So in order to build proper momentum, in my opinion, you need to have the right foundation. It'd be like a car trying to go 140 miles an hour on the highway, but all of the bolts aren't tightened. The fucking thing's gonna fall apart. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Brian. I appreciate you being back with me again this week. I want to take a moment to acknowledge everyone who has shared this show recently. I've had a few friends tell me that they've introduced the show to some new people. I've had some new people reach out to me and say, hey, I found your show. Pretty cool. I really love your stuff. I've had a couple people ask the person who's introduced them or me to them, that was really awesome. That's a great episode. Who the hell is this guy? And so shout out to everyone who's done that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Brian Pannuzzo. I am an executive health coach. I work with high-performing corporate professionals. I work with a lot of parents. I work with a lot of people in committed relationships. I work with executives inside of corporate America. I work with teams of executives. I work with companies via company wellness programs, and I work one-on-one with really high performers. And I'm an expert. I'm an expert at doing that because I was you. I sat inside of corporate America for the last 20 years, or for 20 years of my life. For the last 5 years, I've been doing something a little bit different. And I don't really do a formal introduction anymore. I used to have an intro, they call it, into the show. And so give me some feedback. Do you think me providing an intro to you each show, brief, short, to the point, why I'm here, what I'm doing, do you think it would be helpful? If you just found me, do you have any clue who I am? Hopefully you know a little bit more now. If you don't know, now you know, as the notorious B.I.G. once so eloquently said. But I appreciate you being here, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself over the course of time, and maybe we'll bring back a formal intro. But I do what I do because of the life that I previously lived. You are best positioned to serve the person that you once were. I'm actually going to do a podcast episode on that very, very soon. And I once was, and sometimes still am, you. I am a high performer. I am a husband. I am a father. I am a elite professional. And I found myself at a crossroads in my life almost 10 years ago now, where my professional success came at a pretty significant cost. And I didn't quite realize what it was costing me until it all showed up at my door one day, rang my doorbell, left a really large flaming hot pile of dog poop right on the front mat and said, clean it up and you got problems. And so I say that to welcome anyone who's new. This is episode 205, I think. And for those of you who just found me in the last several episodes, welcome to the show. For those of you, and I know there are many of you who've been rocking with me since episode 1, since the trailer actually, I cannot express how grateful I am to you, for you telling other people about me, for you just seeing someone who needs my help, walking down your row in your office and just screaming my name, texting them my podcast link, getting them on my email address. You can go to thesuccesslift.com and join my email address or my email list. I've said this before. That's where I put a very large amount of my energy. My purpose is for you to hear some of the things that I say, learn from some of the lessons that I've learned from mistakes that I've made, and now from the hundreds of people just like you that I've worked with, and hopefully implement them into your life and improve it. Don't end up in the position that I was. I have some props with me today, and I want to make a little experiment here. We're gonna build a little something. We're gonna build a building together, and I want to use it as an analogy because I heard this great analogy recently. And I've heard aspects of this before, and by no means am I an architect. So this could go really, really wrong, and that's okay. If it does, it does. I've heard a great analogy about, building a tall building and building a house. And so much of what I do, so much of my coaching is really built upon a foundation. And I'm going to just start to lay honestly, I don't even know if you can see this on camera yet. You'll see it as I start to make it a little bit taller. But we think about foundations in our life, right? And we think about building a house or a building. And obviously, everyone digs a hole when they're going to build something, when they're going to build a building, when they're going to build a house, whatever it may be. I think you're starting to see that, right? And if you can't see the bottom of it, there are 4 layers of these cups in front of me that represent our building. And I don't know, I did that carefully so that it wouldn't knock it all down on this podcast episode. But if I asked you to do it as fast as you possibly could, you would have done it a little bit faster than me, but I did it fairly quickly, right? And so if I said build the tallest building you can in the next 10 seconds, you would probably do something like I just did. But if I gave you a little bit longer than that, what would be the first thing maybe that you would do? Would you attempt to go higher from here? I mean, there's only one other, I can't put another cup. I guess I could put one this way, right? And then I'd kind of be out of space, or I could keep stacking them on top of this one. That wouldn't really create much more of an effect in terms of exponential height, right? And so what you might do is you might start to expand the bottom, expand the foundation, and then build it up a little bit higher, right? I'm coming up on this side now, coming up on this side. And let's see if we can get ourselves a little bit higher, just a little bit higher, right? So now I've gone ultimately, oh, this is high pressure stuff, high pressure stuff. Wow. Okay. So ultimately, I've gone another 2 stories up in this little equation, in this little example that I'm doing right now. I realize you can't see me. You're just going to watch the cups for a moment. All right. I did that because I expanded the foundation. Okay. I dug effectively a deeper hole. And that's what I want to talk to you about a little bit today. And it will be a pretty short message. And I'm going to carefully tear down my building because I think you get the point at this point. I went from a 4-cup base, 4-cup base to a 6-cup base. That 6-cup base ultimately got me another 2 stories on my building. All right. Now, what if I said, increase it by 10 times? What would you do? We ultimately couldn't go up very far without taking more and more and more and more time to build a bigger, stronger, maybe even deeper foundation. Now, I'm not an architect. I don't understand the physics behind how low do you have to go and how wide do you have to go vertical. I would imagine they're correlated in some way. We have palm trees in California, and there are tall, skinny ones. There are shorter, really fat ones. And then there are really, really thick, really, really tall ones. And a number of different ones in between. Never realized how many different types of palm trees there were until I moved here. And when it does get windy, we live just off of the water. When it does get windy, occasionally you'll see the trees really moving, right? A lot of times some of the leaves will fall down. They're big, by the way. They're like, I'm 6'6", okay? They are well bigger than me from a wingspan perspective and height. Huge, huge things. Now, when the wind is blowing, you see the skinny ones, which I really love, near and dear to my heart. Skinny, tall things. Not anymore, though. Not anymore. Check out the show on YouTube. You see these muscles. You'll see those small ones really start to sway back and forth. The large ones, barely move. Barely move. Stronger foundation. And so there absolutely is a correlation between the strength of the foundation and ultimately how high you can build something. What the exact metrics are, I have no freaking clue. Nor is it really important. I think you get the point. Here's the analogy and the lesson for today, and I'll keep it short. When people start to develop some of the momentum that we talked about last week, they attempt to go as fast as they possibly can to build the tallest building that they can. That building is typically unsustainable in its height because it lacks an appropriate foundation. And so when I got fed up with my life 10 or so years ago, it's now 9.5 to be exact, I immediately started to make some changes. My expectations for the results from those changes were ridiculous. I had decided that I was done living this life that I was living, of a high-performing professional that only really excelled at the office. I was failing in my marriage. I was failing as a father. I was failing as an individual. I was 30 pounds overweight. I had constant joint pain. I had pedestrian addictions, drugs, alcohol, gambling, you name it. I did it. And when my mind said, okay, time to do something different, the successful professional in me, the athlete in me, the competitor in me decided, okay, this is it. I'm changing. My expectations, though, were unbelievably unrealistic. I spent 15 years digging my hole into the ground I was expecting to get out of in 3 months. And so this is the dilemma that I see so many people undertake. Let's just use January 1st as an example. You've spent the last 12 months, 12 years for some of you, especially the last 45 or so days, obliterating yourself during the holiday party season. And then in 3 weeks, with an attempt to be no or very limited alcohol, to be Whole30, gluten-free, dairy-free, cut out sugar, only eat celery juice and eat bird food, you expect to be a different person on like January 17th. Good luck. It's really hard to do that. It's pretty much impossible to do that. The building that you're trying to build is going up too fast. There's only a certain amount of progress you can make in a period of time, in my opinion, that's sustainable. And typically, just like a stock chart, I talk a lot about looking at different financial concepts inside of my coaching and what I do, because it's still one way that my brain thinks on a relative basis. And it's a way that many of my clients' brains thinks, because many of them are financial professionals. Think about a stock chart, right? We've all hopefully have owned a stock that has had a pretty big gap higher. Usually, some of those gains get given up, right? The faster the rise of price action on a chart, usually the more, at least at a minimum, the more volatility you're going to see. And oftentimes, what goes up very fast does tend to come down, as opposed to a very healthy looking asset price chart. Doesn't have to be a stock, it could be any asset price chart, where you see it climb for a little bit and maybe it, what they call consolidate, kind of goes back and forth, treads water a little bit. Maybe it goes up 10%, in a year, and it spends the first quarter of the following year giving back 3 or 4%, 2 or 3%. Then maybe there's good earnings or some other positive news, and you see the stock begin to move up higher yet again. But if you look at it, it's kind of like looks like almost one side of a jagged mountain. I don't know if I'm going the right way on the screen. I'm going from my lower left to my upper right. I'm not sure how it's showing up on the camera. Hopefully you get the point. What you want to see is, you want to see price action in your life go from lower left to upper right. Are things in your life moving from the lower left to the upper right? That's a pretty good question to ask yourself, especially if you're someone who resonates with a lot of this type of language and vernacular. And what happens if we go from lower left to upper left really fast? Well, we're probably going to spend some time coming back down. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Again, if you're a financial advisor, think about some of the questions that you ask your clients. the first conversation you typically have with a client is about risk tolerance and goals, just like I have with my clients. Where do you want to go? And how much volatility, how much risk, how many ups and downs are you willing to endure along the way? Because we can crash diet you. I don't do that, but we could. We could crash diet you, have you lose 15 pounds in a month, and then you go on that vacation or whatever it is you're dieting for, and you come back up 12 pounds from the low or 8 pounds from the low. Random. Well, you net loss 7 or 3 pounds, somewhere in the middle, depending on what the number is that month. It's not a bad month for a lot of my clients. 3 might be a little low for really in a fat loss phase, but 7's fantastic, especially from a sustainability standpoint. But what are you thinking mentally? What do most people think? I gained 12 pounds. I gained 7 pounds. I was here, now I'm back here. I can't figure out how to, get this to stick. Are you shooting for a target that is going to require you to give some back? Again, if your risk tolerance is super high and you're willing to go after those 30% years when the market is super hot, you have to be willing every once in a while to get smoked, to have your portfolio go down by 20%. Can you stomach that? Can you stomach the volatility of this house going up as fast as possible and then falling over because we started to get a little wobbly and I wasn't precise with my hands putting the cups on? Or would you rather spend time developing the foundation of the house, building the right habits? Maybe it's, hey, these cups are too clumsy. Let's find stronger cups. Maybe we spend time doing that. And understanding that we're putting in the necessary work in order to get this to go higher. So this might take a little bit more time than you're willing to invest. That's okay. It comes with consequences. The consequences are your house might fall down as we start to stack cups on top of each other. That's going to require you to pick them all up and put them back in place. Most people say they're willing to do that, but how many times have we done something like this? It's fallen down, and finally, what do? We go, screw it. We move on to something else. And that's what we do in our journey a lot. We fail to build a solid foundation. And in doing so, we almost ensure our failure. Because when push comes to shove, it's pretty easy to say, I'm willing to endure that volatility. I want to go after those returns. Call me and ask me that in early or mid-March of 2020. Call me and ask me that in 2008 and early 2009. Call someone who has been, quote unquote, tapped out. When you've hit a limit and you can't take it anymore and you sell at the bottom. When there's a maximum pain threshold. I've lived it. And from a financial standpoint. I've had a trading book I've gotten tapped out of positions before. Some of them I wanted out, others I didn't want to, but that was the process. It's easy to say that you're willing to accept the cost of the road you're about to endure. It's another thing to get in it, get on it, start driving, and then hit those bumps. And so when you think about building a plan for yourself, no matter what it be, mental performance, physical performance, relational performance, whatever it is, could you build it for the worst times? I love it when someone says, I'm too busy, I can't do this. I say, no, that's the point. Because everything that we're doing right now is meant to be designed for when you're at your busiest. Will your absolute performance look like it does when you have all the time in the world to devote to this. I have some people that are retired. I have some people that are in between jobs. They have a lot more time to devote to some of these things. That's okay. We're going to maximize that. We're going to use the momentum that I talked about last week and maximize some of their results right now. I have clients that travel heavily. When they come home and they have 12 days at home, we put our foot on the gas. Because sometimes no matter what we do on the road, it's just not as ideal as home. And so that's a lot of the mistake that you're making is that, number one, you're going too fast. Number two, when there is a moment to slow down or pause, you take it. You take it. So in order to build proper momentum, in my opinion, you need to have the right foundation. It'd be like a car trying to go 140 miles an hour on the highway, but all of the bolts aren't tightened. The fucking thing's gonna fall apart. But if we just took, I don't even know what the assembly time is. Let's call it an extra day to properly assemble the car. Shit, we got doors flying off of airplanes in midair. That kind of slows it down, doesn't it? Kind of shuts it down. What if the bolts were just tightened? What if whatever safety checks needed to be done got done? Would that plane have made it to market sooner? No, it wouldn't have. It might have gotten delayed. They might have found these issues. Would it be a better proposition from a profitability standpoint long-term? I think so. I have a feeling that these planes being on the ground, being grounded is not very financially profitable. And so stay in the game. Your best ability sometimes is your availability. Think about some of the greatest players in the history of sports. Tom Brady and LeBron James come to my mind right now, especially LeBron, because he's front and center and still playing. Dude hasn't been hurt. He's taking care of his body. This is a slightly different analogy, but you can't become one of the greatest of all time if you play every other season. If you're injured half of every season, sooner or later you say, you know what, this is not worth it. Take some time. Build a deeper, more structurally sound foundation. If you don't know what that is, get help. Get help doing that. Hope this message resonated with you. Hope you found it helpful. If I can help you develop a better foundation, you know where to find me. I'll talk to you soon.